Chapter 12. I groaned when I glimpsed Governor's Island on my right. I'd forgotten all about the big, fat British fort. How would I get by without being seen? Something was wrong with the compass, so I couldn't submerge. I had to keep the conning tower above water so I could steer toward the battery and not British-held Long Island. I'd made good time, but not good enough. The sun was a growing golden presence on the horizon, and light sped across the sky. To my horror, I saw dozens of heads appear on the ramparts of the fort. Soldiers were shouting and pointing at the Turtle. Then a group of them scrambled down to the shore and clambered onto a boat. They were coming after me. I tried to turn the handcrank faster, but my weary arms wouldn't obey. The heavy Turtle was about as fast as a turtle on land. It was no match for the 6 redcoats bearing down on me. I looked around wildly for something to throw overboard to lighten the submarine. Everything, the valves, the cranks, and rods, were permanently attached. Everything except the bomb. I opened the hatch and untied the rope that ran from the screw to the mine. "It's a bloody rebel!" I heard one of the soldiers shout. "Faster, men!" I dove back into the Turtle, pulled the hatch down, and yanked out the screw holding the bomb in place. I turned the hand crank furiously. As the Turtle lunged forward, I looked behind me. The bomb had popped to the surface in the path of my pursuers. The timer was set for an hour, so it wasn't going to explode any time soon. But maybe I hoped they would pick it up and take it back to the fort. The soldiers stopped about 15 feet from the mine, craning their necks as they tried to figure out what it was. Pick it up, I murmured. But the longboat turned and with a flourish of oars fled back toward the island, leaving the bomb bobbing in the waves. I forged ahead, trying to put as much distance as I could between the bomb and the Turtle. Ahead was the battery with a small group of people waiting. I sighed in exhausted relief. I screwed open the hatch and waved. A few minutes later, a boat was towing me in. I leaned back and closed my eyes. My arms and shoulders burned, and my lips were dry and cracked. I wondered if this was all real. Had I really just attacked Black Dig's ship, rowed across the harbor and back? Release the bomb? I lost track of time. A voice broke into my misty awareness. "What happened, Nate? What happened?" I saw David's anxious face framed by the hatch. "We kept waiting to hear an explosion and nothing happened. Where's the bomb?" Too tired to talk, I just pointed to the harbor. Suddenly 2 strong arms hoisted me out of the submarine. I looked up. "Papa!" I gasped, collapsing to my knees. "What are you doing here?" A dipper of cold water appeared before my face. I drank it, and then another and another. Wiping my mouth, I looked up at the ring of concerned faces. David, General Putnam and his staff, and Papa. "Butch Hyde told me he saw you over on the heights," Papa said. "He said you were working on the water machine with David. I thought he was crazy, but I searched for you and David anyway." Papa nodded toward the Turtle. "I guess he wasn't." "What happened, Private Wade?" General Putnam asked. Papa looked at me, and his mouth formed the word, "Private?" I smiled shyly and shrugged. "Well, I'm not sure, General. I submerged near the bow and tried, but I couldn't get the screw in. I must have been doing something wrong." David frowned. "It should have worked," he said, obviously frustrated. "Maybe he hit copper sheathing," said the General. "A lot of their boats are using it. Makes them faster." "But David started. Then he looked down at the bombless Turtle. "Nate, if you couldn't attach the bomb, then—" A massive explosion suddenly ripped the air. The wharf shook. An enormous column of water rose out in the harbor. We stood staring, astonished. Soldiers and civilians from the city rushed down to the waterside. "Is there an attack?" shouted one man. "Is the world ending?" cried an anxious woman. "That'll do it for him," cried General Putnam, punching his fist in the air. He was smiling the biggest smile I'd ever seen. "So that's what you did with the bomb," David said. "They were about to catch me," I said. "I know. We were watching you through a spyglass. I was wondering why they gave up chase," David said. "Smart idea." Papa was pointing to the harbor. "Look, they're leaving," he said. On the ships clustered around Governor's Island, sailors were scrambling to cut cables and hoist sails. Soon dozens of the warships were sailing across the harbor for safety. "By God, you've made 'em run, young man," General Putnam shouted. "The water machine from Connecticut has put the redcoats on the run." David turned toward me. Didn't I tell you, Nate? Didn't I say you'd do it? Well, I didn't really do it. I didn't get the eagle or black dick. I must have done something wrong. I doubt it. That screw would have penetrated copper sheathing. I tested it. You know me, I leave nothing to chance. He shrugged. Maybe it hit the metal rod that runs from the rudder. Who knows? David gestured toward the fleeing warships. It doesn't really matter today. Just look, Nate. The biggest naval expedition in history is retreating from our turtle. He laughed and shook his head. You're a hero, Nate, and a brave one at that. I laughed. A hero? I thought. Brave? It was too good to be true. But it was true in a way. It was like Joe Martin had said back before the battle. Courage didn't mean you never felt afraid. Courage was doing your duty even when you felt scared to death. And we can always try again, Nate, David said excitedly. All we need is a new bomb and a new target. Papa had been listening. David, I think Nathan has proved his mettle, he said. He's a sailor, all right. I've seen that for myself with him in this turtle contraption. But he's only 14. He had a close call today, and I don't want him dead before his time. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to get someone else. But Papa, I protested, David needs me. Ezra might be sick for a long time. Nathan, it's time for you to go home, and you know it. David will find someone else. I didn't like Papa's words, but I sensed he was right, so I shut up. I'd done what I came to do. But the war was just getting started. How could I help the revolution from Saybrook? It was like David read my mind. He leaned close and whispered, You can be a hero at home, too, Nate. I hear everyone is on to Mr. Pratt and his Tory ways. He winked at me. And Rachel is going to need a brave man to help her get by. I nodded my head slowly, trying to get my mind around this new idea. Maybe there are many ways to be brave. Maybe one of them was doing your duty at home when everyone else was off at war. Of course, it didn't hurt that Rachel was the prettiest girl in town. That sure made the thought of going home easier. Heck, maybe she was watching from her window even now, watching for the return of the wolf. Helping Uncle Elias and Aunt Sarah on the farm wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Ezra returned home after he'd recovered, and we spent our days in the field reliving our adventure. Whenever I could, of course, I went into town to see Rachel, who was holding up pretty well. She took some heat about her father being a Tory, but I saw to it that she wasn't tarred and feathered. The war seemed to go on forever. I can't count the number of times it seemed like the British had the Continentals licked, but somehow General Washington kept the army alive and kicking. He finally holed up the British army at Yorktown down in Virginia in 1781, and the British surrendered. Papa came back, limping a little from a ball he took at the Battle of Monmouth, but happy to be home. We returned to New London, and I began helping him with the fishing business. I won't lie and say I wasn't scared the first time back on the water, but somehow it didn't paralyze me like it used to. And soon enough the sea was like an old friend. We made a good crew, Papa and I, and sometimes we caught so many fish the other crews stared in astonishment. David launched the turtle against the British twice more. The submarine worked just fine, but something always kept the pilot from getting close enough to attach the bomb. Then we got word that the British shot the sloop carrying the turtle, and it had sunk to the bottom of the Hudson River. We thought it was gone forever, but soon there were rumors that David had rescued his beloved submarine, and I didn't doubt it. Then the turtle did disappear for good. Knowing David, I bet he dismantled his own invention so the British could never capture it and use the turtle against the colonies. David disappeared too after the war. He returned to Saybrook for a while, then he left on a long trip and never came back. Sometimes when Papa and I are out on the Sound, a big fish will break water, and for a second I see David and the turtle coming up for air. Surrounded by the sea that used to scare me, I think about my freedom from fear, my own war of independence, and I thank my cousin David.